Hey everyone, this is Andy Hall, and you're listening to the Best Advice Ever show. We're on episode number 10, and today we have Dan Arel on. Dan is an author and an activist. We had a really good conversation about the best advice Dan ever got. I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Bye. And Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. You have a second edition of a book out right now, don't you?
It is, well, it's almost out. Comes out November 1st. But yes, Parenting Without God, the second edition, will be out on PM Press, everywhere you can buy a book.
Excellent. And people can pre-order it right now, I believe, can't they?
They can. So you can pre-order it at Amazon or at pmpress.org. And I'll tell you, I'll even throw this in there. I don't know when this is going to air, so I might be a little too soon on this. But if you order in October and use the October coupon code, you get 50% off on your pre-order.
Awesome. That sounds great.
So, yeah. So buy it quick.
yeah. This will be out within a day or so.
Cool.
People have more than ample chance to do that. So
Awesome.
Tell me about the best advice you ever got.
Well, honestly, the best advice I ever got has kind of led me to all the writing I do, which is an author who I won't name because he kind of turned out to be a jerk, but told me, he said, every day, write 1,000 words. He goes, I don't care what you write. I don't care if it's good or bad, but write. He goes, if you're writing a book, try to write on the topic, but just write 1,000 words a day. And if you're blogging and it's sort of like a thing to unlock your brain, because what happened to me all the time was that when I'm writing a book, for example, or I just want to write a blog post, I can't get anything to come out, no matter how much I do. So if I'm thinking about, like today I was reading about the Russian Revolution. Now, I'm not writing about the Russian Revolution. I don't plan on writing about it, but I would write 1,000 words about it. And I wouldn't fact check it. I wouldn't go get sources. I would just write what I thought about it, or my what I remember, my version of it, and have that kind of flow out of me. And then what I would find is, next thing I know, it sparked something in there.
Right.
And suddenly now I have all this to write about. And it has nothing to do with the Russian Revolution. And it has nothing to do with my favorite egg salad I ate. But something in that writing sparked a thought that kind of rolled into something new. And I actually get asked a lot from other writers, like, how do you write a book? How did you get this done? Or how do you write all these blog posts? And that's the same advice I pass on, is just try to write every single day, even if it's nonsense. And then, but I also save them. I put them aside.
Oh, that's
because
smart.
I've written what I thought would just be like ramblings to get me going, and there's something more there. I have a book that'll probably be out in the next 1 to 2 years that I'm working on that is based off that, where I started writing just thoughts about how humanism is more compatible with the left than it is with other like political ideologies, and how leftists should be embracing humanism more, but how we can combat like right wingers who are like, oh, I'm a humanist because I'm an atheist. And I just sort of started writing it just to get something out of me. And then I realized, wait, like if I went through and actually fine-tuned this and researched it, I could do something. And I actually sold it as a book. So it's not a waste either, even if you're writing about something that seems like nonsense.
Sure.
Or just something to get you going. It can become something.
In a technical sense, do you feel like you've become a better writer technically in terms of grammar or in terms of composition due to this method?
I think so, because grammar, anyone that goes back and look at my older work, I've never in my entire life been good at grammar. I'm not a trained writer by schooling or anything. I just wrote to write. And so like basic grammar stuff just never really made sense to me. Like I didn't need it. Like, so I wasn't like honing that craft. But the more I write, the better I get at it. The less mistakes you make on your first draft. And so now when I'm rereading it, I'm noticing that like, oh, I just got to fix like this comma here, or this word actually would be better here, things like that, where it's not where it used to be. I'd go through and be like, that's not the right there. That's not the right your.
Sure.
And when you write, when you're not a writer, you tend to pause, and you think that pause in your head is a comma, and so you put a lot of commas in when you're
that's
doing it
too when I was starting out. Yeah.
And then now, like, I feel less, because as I'm writing so much, the writing's flowing more. And so when you're not pausing in your head, you're not feeling like there's a comma supposed to be there. And so technically, I think the more I write, the more natural it feels. And, I did end up taking a creative writing course for a job I had, and that helped me with the structure of writing a bit better.
Sure.
But because that was something I never would have guessed, how you're supposed to structure an article or anything like that. Like, it's not something it's not a natural thing. But now that I know that, I've introduced that into my like random writing, just to make sure I'm also always doing it in the right format.
Yeah.
And so the more I do it, just the better it gets. And I think that's true for anything. Like, the more you do it, I coach ice hockey and I play ice hockey. How do I get better at it? The more I do it. Like, if I take 3 weeks off, I'm not getting better at hockey in that 3 weeks. But if I do it every day or a couple times a week, I get better.
So when you're editing a book or a series of pages, do you still write?
Yep. Yeah. Probably a little bit less, because while you're editing or going through, you're always kind of writing in that process.
Sure.
Which is the hardest part about editing your own book at first, is that, like, you're like, okay, I'm done. And then while you're doing it, you're like, wait, I have 7 more paragraphs to add to this section. And then half the time you'll find out later, wait, I said that thing later on in the book. And so you always have to kind of, it's hard because books are long.
Yeah.
And so by the time you finish it, you've kind of forgot what you wrote to start.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you start over and you go read it, and you sort of forgot what you wrote at the end. And so it's a cycle. But because what I'll do is, while I'm editing and writing, a lot of times I won't write those new paragraphs into the book. I'll write them on a separate document and write it out. And that way I have them, but I can see if they really fit or not.
Yeah.
And so in that process, you're kind of putting down 1,000, 2,000 words during editing that might make it into the book, but they might not. But at that point, when you're sort of going back and re-editing, you also hate writing at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you've written, 70, 120,000 words, depending on the length of your book, and you never want to write again. And so, but you have to push yourself. So here I'm editing. No, I'm gonna do it, and keep up.
I have found that I've gotten fatigued from just reading the same sentence over and over. Like, you edit, there's the first edit, and then there's the second edit, and after a while, I just get tired of. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I know a different author had once told me, when I started Parenting Without God, the first version in 2013, he told me, you're going to finish the book, you're going to reread it, and then you're going to say, I have to rewrite this entire book.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hate it. He goes, so he always had a friend read it and tell him, like, no, this is actually good. Take a break from it and come back. And I always try to put days for articles or weeks for books in between my going back to edit, because I kind of want to forget about it and not overthink it and be kind of over that part. Because if you go right back into it, you're gonna be like, oh, this is crap.
I go through this this kind of these stages after I write something. There's the creative afterglow that I think, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And then maybe within hours, sometimes I look back on it and I, oh, this is horrible. How did it? Popular piece and people like it. I go, how did this ever become popular? How did people like this? I don't know. But maybe that's more about me, Dan, than anything else.
I don't think so, though. I think that's pretty common. And I would imagine, I mean, you do stand up. I can't imagine you write something and it sounds super funny, but the more you say it, it loses its own. Like, if I watch a stand up special that I love 5 times in a row, the 5th time, I'm probably not going to laugh as much as I did the first, second, or third time. And I would imagine writing jokes, it's got to be tough, because you have to remember, was it funny the first time?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of second guessing yourself going through the process of writing jokes. But I think that was great advice. Writing 1,000 words a day, even about anything. It's great to get into the practice, and people who are thinking about writers or are currently writing, they should definitely do that. And I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and I've given it to friends who don't write, but they've got like emotional stuff they're dealing with, and like this journal. Like sometimes, when I'm writing to get words out, but sometimes it's also therapeutic, because I might write about a subject that I'm just stuck on emotionally, or like something about work that's draining me, or something in my relationship that's hard at this time, and you just write about it, and it just gets it out of you. Like I recently had my father pass, and I can tell you, I got asked by my family to write the eulogy, and I didn't think I could at first, but I got to tell you, writing it was probably one of the best things that I've ever done, because I got to talk about him, how I remember him.
Yeah.
And I researched it a bit to find some information out that I wanted to put in there, and it really was this great, like, therapeutic thing. And I wrote way more than I said.
Sure.
But, because I went back and fine-tuned it to be a short eulogy, but writing it, number one, it actually unlock some other things I wanted to write about. But secondly, like, it just made me feel better after.
Yeah.
And it was a connection to my father that I didn't have at that time.
Writing is very therapeutic, because in therapy, you're supposed to feel the things that are unfeelable and say the things that are regularly unsayable.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've given this advice to people that jump. They're like, what am I going to do with it? I'm like, I don't care. Delete it after if you want.
Yeah.
Just leave it in a journal, or put it in and if you have an iPad, put it in an app, like whatever you want. But if you just get it out, you'll feel better after. And so I found the advice to be very universal in that sense.
Great advice, man. Where can people find you online, Dan?
Well, you can find me at danarel.com, or on Twitter at Dan Arel, or Facebook, which I'm a little less active, but at Dan Arel blog is my public account, and you cannot know my personal one. Well, you can know my personal one, but other people can't.
Sure. I just want before we go, you're becoming more of a privacy wonk, aren't you?
I am. That has been a big thing of mine for the last couple of years, is internet privacy and owning your data, or controlling your data. Yeah. Deciding who you want to give it to. Like, sure. If you're going to be on Facebook, that's going to be a conscious, like, okay, I'm giving up this information to Facebook. You should know that, and go into that knowingly. And even storing files online and your pictures, where are you keeping them? Who has access to them? Yeah. Can they be used without your permission? Things like that, because we're like, oh, great, Gmail's free. No, it's not. Hey, you may not be paying with money, but you're paying with all your information. They know everything you've bought. They know the things you're searching for. They know all. And so I just want people to be aware. Some people are fine with it. They don't care. But others, to me, it's about just controlling how much is out there.
I think
and being a public figure makes that a little harder. I just got to kind of go with it and say, here's what's out. But also at the same time, being a public figure, there are lots of things I want to keep private and not have out there. So that's kind of what got me involved in it. And then just finding out, like, I'm not your prophet. Like, so I pay for an email account because it gives me privacy. I pay for storage online. And then I limit, like, on Facebook, what I like. My likes are limited. What I share, I took, like, personal photos off there. Things like that, just to kind of limit. But if anyone actually cares about that, you can go to thinkprivacy.io. And that's my website that is all about internet and data privacy.
Well, that's great. I think we got two pieces of advice.
There you go.
So, hey, thanks.
2 for 1.
Thanks again for coming on The Best Advice Ever.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Awesome. Yeah. Take care.